At a humble Thanksgiving dinner, my mother-in-law whispered cruelly, "Some roots grow deep, but yours are too fragile to last a storm." I smiled, thanked her for dinner, and watched as the years unfolded. Long after she was gone, long after her family drifted into dust, mine sent trees into the skies, into forests, cities, and worlds she never dared imagine, under roots that bore my name in iron and marble and breath itself. Thanksgiving 2007 was supposed to be simple. Drew and I had only been married 8 months. We were still in that phase where you think love will be enough to smooth everything over. I'd only met his family a few times before a birthday dinner, a 4th of July barbecue, nothing too deep. But Thanksgiving was different. Thanksgiving was Marianne's day. Their farmhouse sat on the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. Not the pretty touristy part, the real outskirts, where the land's rough and the trees lean into the wind like they're tired of standing. It was a big white house, chipped paint, long gravel driveway, 3 American flags even though 2 were tattered and fading. It looked proud but tired, like its owners. When we walked in, the air was thick with the smell of turkey, gravy, burning candles, and old pride. Every surface had some old family picture or heirloom sitting on it. Trophies from high school track meets. Newspaper clippings yellowed with age. Porcelain knickknacks gathering dust. Marianne was there at the center of it, wearing pearls and a stiff smile. She hugged Drew tight, gave me a polite nod like you'd give someone handing you your dry cleaning. Dinner was exactly what you'd expect, long drawn out, heavy with forced smiles and loaded comments. I tried to be useful. I helped set the table, passed around dishes, laughed at stories I didn't really understand. I thought maybe if I just kept showing up, kept being kind, she'd warm up. I was wrong. After dinner, I was helping clear the plates when it happened. Marianne came up behind me in the kitchen, close enough that I felt her breath on my neck. She said it so soft no one else heard. "Some roots grow deep, but yours are too fragile to last a storm." I didn't flinch. I didn't turn around. I stacked the plates, smiled, and said, "Thank you for dinner." Later that night, I told Drew. He laughed nervously, said, "You know how she is." Asked me to give her time. Time didn't help. Marianne didn't believe in time healing anything. She believed in bloodlines, appearances, and keeping outsiders in their place. The little cuts kept coming. If I brought a homemade dish to a gathering, she'd compliment someone else's store-bought casserole louder. If I mentioned my work, she'd find a way to pivot the conversation to some ancestor of hers who built something lasting. When Ava was born in 2010, she came to the hospital but stood stiff in the corner, barely looking at the baby. When we invited her to Ava's first birthday party, she RSVP'd, no, said she had a club event. Even in death, she found ways to haunt. But I didn't forget what she said that Thanksgiving. I didn't forget how she looked at me like I was already broken. Instead of folding under it, I built something out of it. While she watched and judged, I grew. I kept my head down and took night classes while Ava slept on my chest. I finished my degree in architecture in 4 years, even when it almost killed me. I used every contact I had, every contractor I knew from my work, every realtor who'd take my call to start a nonprofit aimed at restoring broken neighborhoods. We bought abandoned homes for cheap. We fixed them up, made them safe again. We turned trash lots into parks. First it was small. 1 house, 1 park. But it grew. Word got around. More volunteers came. More donors pitched in. Marianne never came to see any of it. She just heard whispers. And the whispers stung more than anything I could have said to her face. Meanwhile, her family, the deep roots she was so proud of, rotted. Greg, the oldest, divorced twice. His second wife took him for everything he had. He ended up renting a 1-bedroom apartment near the highway. Matt, the second son, thought he was smarter than the law. Embezzled hundreds of thousands from the family business. The feds found out. He did 18 months in prison. Marianne used to brag that Matt was the future of the Wellingtons. Future was gone. Peter, the third son, started drinking heavily after a failed business. Last I heard, he was living in a trailer on the edge of town, yelling at ghosts. Drew stayed true. Somehow he stayed true to me. He didn't just support me, he believed in me. Even when it was hard. Even when the money was tight and the nights were long. I didn't rub their failures in Marianne's face. I didn't have to. She saw. Every time she heard my name at a town council meeting, every time a neighbor thanked me for saving a piece of land from a strip mall, Every time she passed one of our parks with my name in small print on a plaque, she knew. She knew the storm had come and gone. And it wasn't me who got ripped out of the ground. Marian died bitter, in a hospital bed with no visitors except Drew. Her other sons didn't even show up. At her funeral, the church was half empty. It was mostly old friends who didn't really like her, but thought they should come. I stood there in a black dress, holding Ava's hand, feeling nothing. No hatred. No joy. Just a deep, quiet understanding that she was wrong about me. That she'd always been wrong. When we left the graveyard, Ava looked up at me and said, "Mom, are we still going to plant trees in the park tomorrow?" And I smiled. 'Cause that was it, wasn't it? Marian built nothing. She guarded dead roots. I was building forests. Forests my children and my children's children would walk through long after her family name faded into dust. After Marianne's funeral, I thought it would be over. I thought the hate would rot with her buried deep. I was wrong. Greg, Matt, and Peter, even though they were broken men by then, still had enough venom left to try and poison what I built. It started small. Little comments at city council meetings. Complaints filed against my nonprofit for zoning violations. Whispers that we were taking good land from real families. First I ignored it. Figured it was just noise from men who had nothing left. But it grew louder. One day we found slashed tires on our work trucks. Another day our office windows shattered overnight. Threats slipped into our mailbox, typed letters. No fingerprints, just cruel words. Outsiders don't get to own our town. I knew who it was. Even if they hid behind fake names, I knew. Didn't scare me at first. Just made me angry. But anger burns fast. Fear simmers. When I came home one night to find "Go back where you came from" spray painted across our garage door, I realized it wasn't just business anymore. They wanted me gone. I sat Drew down at the kitchen table. The same table where we once ate frozen dinners trying to save money. I told him, "I won't run. I'm not leaving." He looked tired. Older than he should have looked at 40. But he nodded. Then we fight smart. That night we made a plan. First thing I did was hire private security for our offices. Real security. Quiet men and women who knew how to handle threats without waving it in the town's face. Second, we went public. I gave interviews. Spoke at city meetings. Told the truth about the harassment. I didn't name names, not yet. But I made it clear we weren't afraid. It worked. Most people in town weren't like the Wellingtons. They were regular folks who just wanted safe parks for their kids and good homes for their neighbors. Support started pouring in. Donations doubled. Volunteers tripled. And Greg, Matt, and Peter? They got sloppy. One night, 2 volunteers caught Greg and Peter trying to pour bleach into the fuel tanks of our construction equipment. Cops came. Caught them red-handed. Charges: vandalism, property destruction, intent to cause harm. They got probation, community service, and a healthy serving of public shame. Matt kept his hands clean, at least legally. But he didn't stay quiet. He tried to sue us. Filed a lawsuit claiming our buildings lowered property values and attracted undesirable elements. It was laughable. We had mountains of evidence to the opposite, but lawsuits aren't about winning. They're about wearing you down. 6 months dragged by. Meetings. Depositions. Court dates. Money hemorrhaging into lawyer fees. Drew and I fought behind closed doors. Not about whether to give up, we never even said the words, but about how much we could take before everything we built cracked under the pressure. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Marianne was laughing somewhere. If this was the storm she promised. But storms don't last forever. Witches do. The judge threw Matt's lawsuit out in less than 20 minutes. Said there wasn't even a whiff of merit. Matt stormed out of the courtroom so red-faced and furious he tripped over a chair on the way out. Meanwhile, the town rallied behind us even harder. We got more grants. Built 2 new parks. Started work on a community center. Our name, the one Marian thought would never last, was now on banners, on benches, on playgrounds where kids laughed without even knowing how hard we fought for those spaces. Still, the Wellingtons weren't done yet. Greg filed for bankruptcy. Peter vanished. Nobody saw him again after his probation ended. Rumors said he moved out west. Maybe trying to outrun his own shame. Matt stuck around though. and he was bitter enough to try something worse. He didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted to ruin Ava. Ava was 17 when Matt came after her. She had grown into everything Marianne hated, and everything I was proud of. Tall, strong, fierce. She wore her curls natural, loved painting murals on old brick walls, and talked about going to college out of state to study environmental design. She carried herself like she belonged everywhere. And maybe that's what Matt hated most. It started small again. Anonymous comments on Ava's social media pages. Posts suggesting she wasn't really a Wellington. That she was just some charity case her mother forced into the family. At first, Ava brushed it off. Teenagers deal with trolls every day. But then someone slashed her bike tires outside her high school. Twice. Then someone emailed her fake acceptance letters, cruel jokes, making her think she got into colleges she hadn't even applied to. Drew and I went to the police. They said they'd look into it but gave the usual shrug. No real evidence. Hard to trace online threats. We knew it was Matt, but knowing it and proving it weren't the same thing. The final blow came one night in May. Ava had just won a small art contest. She painted a huge mural downtown, a giant tree with roots that twisted into city streets and playgrounds and homes. It was beautiful, hopeful. It even got featured in the local newspaper. The day after it was unveiled, someone set it on fire. A firebomb made from an old liquor bottle smashed into the wall and burned half the mural to black, scorched brick. Fire trucks came screaming down the street. Crowds gathered. News crews showed up. It was chaos. Ava stood across the street shaking, tears in her eyes, clutching her sketchbook so hard the paper tore under her fingers. I stood beside her and felt something inside me snap. Not bend. Snap. That night, Drew and I didn't sleep. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one again, drinking cold coffee and staring at each other. I said it first. If we don't end this now, they'll just keep coming. Drew nodded slowly. We do it smart. We do it clean. No mistakes. We didn't call the cops again. We called an old friend of mine, someone who owed me favors from my contractor days. He didn't work construction anymore. He worked private investigations. Real private investigations. Quiet. Legal. Untraceable. I gave him Matt's name and told him, find me everything. It took 2 weeks. 2 quiet, agonizing weeks where Ava refused to leave the house without one of us. 2 weeks where Drew walked her to and from school. 2 weeks where I buried the rage so deep I thought it might kill me. Then the PI came back with a file thick enough to sink a boat. Matt wasn't just bitter. He was drowning in debt. Gambling. Drugs. Loans from the kinds of people you don't make late payments to. And worst of all, he'd been using fake names to run online harassment campaigns not just against me and Ava, but against other businesses and charities he felt stole attention from his family. We had IP addresses, bank records, witnesses, enough to bury him. But we didn't go straight to the police. No, that would have been too clean. First, we leaked the information anonymously to the local paper. Big front page story. Prominent local family member linked to online harassment. Arson investigations pending. They didn't name Matt right away. But everyone knew. The court of public opinion slammed shut around him like a steel trap. Sponsors pulled their money from anything remotely connected to the Wellingtons. Old friends stopped returning his calls. He was poison goods. 2 days later, someone, probably the same PI, sent everything straight to the police. Matt got arrested. Charged with cyber harassment, intimidation, and destruction of property. They couldn't pin the firebomb directly on him, no prints. No cameras, but the weight of everything else dragged him down hard. His mugshot splashed across every screen in town. Sunken eyes. Greasy hair. Lost. At his arraignment, I took Ava. We sat right up front. When Matt shuffled in wearing orange, shackled at the wrists and ankles, he looked up and saw us. He flinched like he'd been punched. Ava didn't blink. She didn't cry. She didn't forgive. She just watched him. Calm. Still. Strong. And in that moment, I realized something. Marianne was wrong. Our roots weren't fragile. They were iron. Matt's trial came and went. He pled guilty to a few lesser charges to avoid a longer sentence. He got 2 years in state prison. Not much, but enough. Enough to make sure he'd never show his face in town again. He lost everything. No job. No home. No friends willing to touch the mess he made. The Wellington family name? Dead in the water. People stopped talking about them like a legacy. They became a warning. A cautionary tale of pride and rot. But it didn't end there. There was still a part of me, a hard, cold part one didn't even know existed until all this that needed to make sure it stayed dead. Not just the Wellingtons. The idea that people like Marianne could look down on people like me and think they were better just because they got there first. So I made a choice. I took the settlement money from a defamation countersuit we filed against Matt, a nice 6-figure check after lawyer fees, and bought the old Wellington family land. All 40 acres. Cheap. Bank had foreclosed after years of unpaid taxes. No one else wanted it. Bad history sticks to land sometimes like rot. I bought it in cash. And I bulldozed the farmhouse. All of it. The creaking porch where Marianne used to sip lemonade and look down on the world. The dining room where she whispered her poison into my ear. The crooked hallway lined with fading photographs of better days. Gone. In its place we built a public garden. The Roots Memorial Park. No plaques about the Wellingtons. No mention of them at all. Just trees. Flowers. Benches. Walking paths. Ava painted a mural at the entrance, another great tree. Its roots wrapping around tiny houses, parks, libraries. Growing bigger, stronger, more alive. At the opening ceremony, hundreds of people came. Kids ran through the grass barefoot. Families had picnics under the trees. I stood there, watching them, feeling something lift off my chest that had been there since that first cruel Thanksgiving. Ava stood beside me, taller now, stronger. She squeezed my hand. "You built this," she said. I shook my head. "We did. Sometimes late at night. I still walk through the garden alone." I stopped by the spot where the old farmhouse once stood, now just soft grass and wildflowers. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind through the trees. And sometimes, if I listen real close, I swear I can still hear Marianne's voice, bitter, petty, dying, swallowed up by the roots I planted. Roots too deep for any storm. Roots that will outlive her name, her hate, and even me.